Has this ever happened to you? You're trying to search for something on the internet, but you just can't find what you're looking for. There are too many sponsored links, that weird robot that lives inside of Google doesn't even know how to spell, and sometimes you get so confused that you end up accidentally listing your question as a registered business. What if all of that could be remedied with the help of real people? What if Google was just some guy? Well, in 2006, this wasn't just a hypothetical, but was a reality when ChaCha was launched as a human-guided search engine. Most search engines, like Google, work in a simple process. Type in a question or phrase, aka a query, wait for the system to find related keywords and data all across the internet, and within milliseconds get thousands of results. But if all of that sounds too convenient, ChaCha, as you may have guessed, worked a little differently. Web searches still started with a query, but instead of immediately being plugged into the internet, you'd first get paired up with ChaCha Charlie, aka some random person. ChaCha Charlie would do the hard work of looking up your query for you, and within a couple minutes, would send over a paraphrased answer based on what it seemed like you were asking. How useful? At a glance, it may seem counterintuitive, but just like how searching for stuff online in 2026 can sometimes get a little confusing, during the mid-2000s, the internet was generally even less organized and streamlined. Search engines did a decent job of matching keywords, but had a harder time with queries that were phrased conversationally, like how many pages are in Twilight, or when was the microwave invented? Circa 2008, a person looking for info online would half the time either not find anything at all, or spend an average of 11 minutes searching. At least according to this guy, the creator of ChaCha, who would really benefit from someone believing that it's true. And I don't know, maybe it was true back in ye olden days of 2008 and I'm just 2000 and late. But 11 minutes for one search just sounds a little exaggerated, especially since he's not crediting any sources or anything here, which coincidentally is something that might just come up again later on. Whether exaggerated or not, the bottom line was that using a search engine efficiently wasn't always as easy as it seemed. You may be wondering how ChaCha was any different or better than forums or other question-asking sites like Yahoo Answers, which had also launched in the mid-2000s. Well, good old ChaCha Charlie wasn't just a middleman, but was officially called a guide, who would guide users to what they were looking for. Along with the name guide, these helpful respondents on the other end of the ChaCha-verse were also called a lot of other things: specialists, experts, real-live researchers, really smart friends, and intelligent community that does the work for you. I still think ChaCha Charlie sounds more fun, but whatever their name, they were the human part of human-guided search engine. On the web version, users and guides could IM back and forth in a chat window where the guide would provide sources and overall simplify information. And sure, in most recorded examples of these chats, they're pretty clearly still just Googling things and copy-pasting the links they find. But for the people who needed the help, that was seemingly enough. Guides weren't necessarily just random people either, but were assigned to queries depending on the subject. Generalists handed more general questions, while specialist guides were self-proclaimed experts on particular topics. I say self-proclaimed because these experts were about as qualified to field questions on their chosen subject as a Reddit mod. Like this guy, a college student who specializes in video games and science stuff.
On my list, because I do a lot of the science stuff, it narrows down all of your search information to just a few results, and they're always exactly what you need.
It's very possible that he is really knowledgeable, but I don't necessarily trust him to help with my science questions any more than the next 20-year-old gamer, you know? Specialists and their apparent knowledge were at least somewhat vetted, though. Not just anyone could become a ChaCha guide. Well, actually they kinda could. The application was openly available online, and ChaCha had any number between 5,000 and 20,000 guides registered on the site. So clearly, there were a lot of positions to go around. But still, ChaCha couldn't survive as a reputable knowledge source if it didn't have reliable employees. Applicants were screened just like at any other business, and before they could answer queries, guides first had to complete the required training in Search University. The university part of the name makes it sound kind of official, but it was basically just ChaCha's version of those lame onboarding videos you're forced to watch when you start a new job. You know, the ones that are like, "Welcome to job at grocery store. This is what a banana looks like. Never steal company time by using the bathroom on the clock. Training completed." Despite the simplicity of its system, ChaCha did have some relatively tight rules and regulations for its guides too. Responses were tracked and rated for their usefulness so that guides could earn higher rankings and permissions as they leveled up, so to speak. And credible sources, appropriate language, and quality responses were all outlined requirements in Search University. With that in mind, though, I did find this video of a 14-year-old explaining just how easily he was able to sign up illegally as a minor.
I'm 14, and basically I just get on the computer and just earn all the money, you know.
I don't know if that says more about this kid's intelligence or ChaCha's employment standards. And it was real employment, not volunteer work. As much as plenty of Discord and Reddit mods provide their indispensable services for free, there was even more incentive than just a power trip at ChaCha. While the service was free to use, you'd occasionally get advertised to, which is how ChaCha generated revenue, and which meant you could be paid to be a know-it-all. For as many queries as a guide could answer entirely on their own schedule, they'd earn money for each response. The actual amount they earned varied depending on who you asked. ChaCha's president claimed that you could make between $3 and $9 an hour, but in more realistic terms, earnings ranged between 2 and 20 cents per query, based on traffic and how good of an answerer you were. Let's have a little math class to break it down. And if any of my math is incorrect, I'm just a YouTuber, not a mathematician. In the best case scenario, $9 at 20 cents per answer would require 45 responses per hour and spending less than 90 seconds on each one. In the worst case scenario, $3 with 2-cent answers, you'd need 150 responses per hour and only spend 30 seconds on each one. The more realistic, in the middle scenario is an average 11 cents per answer, and if you spent a reasonable but still relatively quick 3 minutes on each question, you'd make about $2.20 in an hour. So all in all, it definitely wasn't a livable wage, but more just a way to earn some extra pocket change if you had the time to spare. And considering the apparently lax hiring process, I'd say that's a pretty fair trade-off. But enough about the guides. There's a whole other side to these queries across the ChaCha-verse, the people sending them in. So did anyone actually use ChaCha, and what did they use it for? Initially, ChaCha was web-based, with a website and a search bar and instant messaging, but within just a couple years, the web version didn't prove to be quite as useful as its creator claimed it to be. Maybe search engines had already become more efficient, or maybe internet users knew how to navigate them better. My theory is that if someone had poor enough digital literacy to need assistance in a simple Google search, then a multi-step process involving a separate website and chat messages would probably just confuse them even more. But this was not the end, because in 2008, after discontinuing its online chat and search, ChaCha's mobile search was unveiled, and it finally found a useful niche. Most people didn't need so much help to Google something if they were already at a computer, but if they didn't have access to the internet, then they could instead turn to ChaCha and text or call in their queries instead. Of course, in 2026, looking something up on your phone is second nature, but in 2008, mobile internet access was kind of a luxury. The first iPhone had only been released a year prior, and even if you had one or another phone that could reach the web, it could be pretty limited, and most people probably didn't want to pay for it anyway. Texting, on the other hand, was much cheaper, more accessible, and beyond standard messaging rates, using ChaCha was free. No weather app, just text and ask what the weather is in your city. Not sure who the actor is in that movie? ChaCha can find out. Stuck at a question on your biology test? Your phone can help you ChaCha cheat. Stocks, directions, current events, as long as the answer could fit into 250 characters, it could be ChaCha'd. Again, I know it sounds outdated and obsolete now, but having this option back in the day felt so futuristic. Guides were matched to mobile queries at random, and if it needed more expertise, they could forward it off to one of the coveted specialists. Otherwise, they could use info resources, frequently asked questions, and other archived answers to gather together a response. For most queries, especially FAQs, the responses were pretty straightforward. But what about something more nuanced or subjective? Well, you could send that stuff too. In fact, go ahead, send anything you want.
But the beauty of ChaCha is that you can ask it literally any question, from something sort of silly like, how many eyelids do camels have?
More texts meant more traffic, meant more money. So no matter what the message said, ChaCha encouraged its users to use the mobile service less like a search engine and more like a place to just dump any thought that popped into their heads.
What is the best barbecue in Memphis? What comes first, the chicken or the egg?
How can I convince my girlfriend to move to Los Angeles with me?
It wasn't just a knowledge service, the guides were basically your friends. I mean, they never said you should text our paid employees for fun exactly, but it's definitely still what a lot of people did anyway. I can confirm this, having been an avid ChaCha-er myself circa 2010. I did use it for actual questions, sometimes, but even when I didn't have a question, I would use it as entertainment during class and try to have a conversation with whatever poor ChaCha Charlie was on the other end and trying to decipher my middle school ramblings. According to ChaCha's ads, pretty much anything that could be worded in conversational English was fair game. Trivia, jokes, advice, recommendations. In theory, this is a good idea. Contact a human guide, expect a human response. It's not that different from making a Reddit post. Except it is, because ChaCha guides are not just some helpful internet stranger with your best interest in mind. They're incentivized to answer as many queries as they can, as fast as they can, to make as much money as possible. And while I'm sure Search University did an okay job at regulating factual responses, subjective responses are, well, entirely subjective. Then factor in text speak, 0 profanity filters, a 250 character limit that did not leave any room for providing sources, and more queries than ever before, around 1 million questions each day in 2009, and you can imagine the ways that this kind of text us anything philosophy could go wrong on both ends of the ChaCha-verse. There aren't a ton of videos online that show the behind the scenes of ChaCha's guiding process, but even in the few screen recordings that do exist, there are plenty of responses and queries that demonstrate some of the flaws in the service. Can taking protein hurt you if you take it after working out at 14? Okay, they've asked this question before. I'm just gonna copy and paste the previous answer. That's very helpful. Your blood will turn acid. You will die. Next question. Is it true the first year of living together as a couple is the hardest? Maybe. That's what they say anyway. Whoever they is. By the way, if you get married, you might be doomed for divorce in 7 years. Okay, hope this helped. ChaCha! How do I get a girl to fall in love with me? Oh, well, you can't, but you can try to get her attention with romantic gestures or a love letter. Why? Humans don't work that way. You can't force a woman to fall in love with you, and I only make $2 an hour, which is not enough to argue with a middle schooler. ChaCha Charlie, out. Of course, these are all cherry-picked examples of some of the weirder or less ideal scenarios, but they were definitely not uncommon. And that's why, hidden in the user FAQ that no one will bother reading, ChaCha makes the disclaimer that it's to be used for entertainment purposes only. Beyond convenience, ChaCha's main selling point had always been its quality answers.
So it's delivering on this promise of, imagine if you could ask any question and have a very smart person with knowledge on that topic answer you.
But if you're not even guaranteed to get that, then what's the point of using it? Sounds a bit like another search engine I know, sacrificing its reliability, loyal customer base, and usefulness just to appeal to more advertisers and make as much money as possible. Even though its primary focus was mobile searching, by 2011, ChaCha's website and newly launched mobile app had transformed and looked nearly indistinguishable compared to most other web portals of the time. News, entertainment, sci-tech? Oh, I think they mean science stuff.
Science stuff.
Lifestyle, politics, sports, business, teen celebrities, and plenty of other topics were the defining categories of what was now an archive of all of the common and popular answers that ChaCha had provided over the years, which was apparently over 1 billion by this point. Okay, thousands of answers all in one place, sorted by keywords, and prone to providing information that was ambiguous, misinterpreted, or just plain wrong. Was any of this really helpful anymore? Or at least, was it any more useful than just using a regular, more direct search engine and finding the answer for yourself? And how about that we're not liable for any misinformation you receive because you should know this is all just for funsies disclaimer? Somehow, by trying to answer all the questions, ChaCha had become part of the problem that it originally intended to fix. Also in 2011, ChaCha expanded its services to the UK, but then discontinued them just a year later in 2012, claiming that it didn't bring in enough traffic to be profitable to its advertisers. And from there, its slow decline was inevitable. Over the next 4 years, ChaCha downsized, fell into debt, laid off employees, and eventually shut down completely in 2016. Honestly, even though I used the service and clearly found it useful in my own way, I never would have guessed that ChaCha lasted as long as it did. Even if it had fixed all of its numerous flaws, there was just no way to keep a competitive edge over basically the whole internet, which, as we know, became more and more accessible through mobile phones and was generally more reliable than some random guy trying to tell you that your kidneys would explode or whatever. But even though ChaCha has long since been gone, believe it or not, in 2026, ChaCha Charlies are still out there. Anything from AI to confidently incorrect Reddit users, they're wandering the internet among us, not knowing how to spell, omitting information, misconstruing sources. If you wouldn't put all of your faith into random ChaCha guide number 40, then probably don't do the same thing with the internet. The moral of the story here isn't don't trust anyone ever, but just think about it before you do. Don't underestimate your ability to be a human-guided search engine, or just a human, that can verify reliable sources and keep asking more questions. Be the ChaCha Charlie you were always meant to be. Hi, welcome to Jelly TV, where I shout out a video that I think deserves some love. I recommend watching 2000's Birthday Parties Were the Best interactive quiz by Maddie Hartz. As a kid, I was obsessed with the process of planning a birthday party, the invitations, the decorations, the theme. Maddie Hartz dives into all of this birthday fun and more in a very thorough and whimsical retrospective. It's full of so much simple but hard-hitting nostalgia, and there's even a cute little interactive quiz that goes along with it as you watch, because birthday parties are made to be personalized. If you also find yourself reminiscing on the childhood joy of picking your birthday party theme, then you should give this video a watch. A huge thank you to DE from ABQ, Clank, Bunny, Bunzo, Karis Desarun, Chumby, Half Fictional, J-Cap Con Leche, Kabluki Luno, Nokoloso, Lojma Animal, Lou, Luna Stephenson, Mark Kent, Melted Patties, Nighttime Coral, Ollie E, Paper Sam, Pharmamags, Pixel Puppy, Shaples, Theodore Nicolawilius, Tish_Guy, and the rest of my patrons for supporting me. Have a cha-cha-rific day.